Welcome back, everybody. 2 o'clock. And as usual, we will start with 10 minutes of silent meditation to let go of everything that happened at lunch and what the brain took over, and just lay it all down. And we will meditate for 10 minutes. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Everybody in phone land can hear? *6 to unmute. Let us know if you can hear us.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yay. Lee has an announcement to make regarding the Joel tape last night.
Yes, if you want to pick up last night's introduction and meditation and also the Joel tape, it's on my website now, and today's 2 classes and tomorrow morning's class will be there also, and they're downloadable. They'll be on leela.org/dulciesclass.htm. That's Dulcies with an S, class.htm. And the D in Dulcie is a capital, and the C in class is a capital. Okay, so leela.org/dulciesclass.htm, and you'll find them there.
What's H?
Sorry, Dulcie's class dot
HTM.
page.
What's that stand for?
Hypertext
Markup. Markup, that's
language. The L is not there as language.
Okay, on leela.net. Org. Leela.org. And /Dulcie's class HDM.
And the D and the C in Dulcie's class are capitals.
D and C, yeah, got that. Okay. I have this quote. The human being is the only animal that considers its very existence a problem. Ain't that the truth?
Probably some monkey said that correctly. Zen monkey.
And then there's a line in the big book that says, it says alcohol, but I've been using it for script and fantasy. The line goes, alcohol gave me wings to fly, then took away the sky. And I've been using it with script. Scripted fantasy gave me wings to fly, but then took away the sky. And sometimes we can put down the substance abuse or the behaviors that don't work, and we're still in full flight from reality. And we can do that all by ourselves in our heads without any help from any substance. And we usually do that when it gets so bloody painful to live in company with our script, because it's so painful, which also, let's see, I'm looking for something here for a moment. Anyway, when the script gets so painful, it's when we start to, one of two things, we either find it even a bigger, better fantasy, or we start to deal with it on paper, with the steps, and, name it and claim it. All right, we have 3 choices when we come to fear. We can repress it, we can project it out there on them, or we can embrace it, hold it gently and compassionately, and then neither of the two takes place. So if we're just doesn't pay to repress it or project it out there on them. So what we can do with our fear is not avoid it, but pull it up, embrace it, acknowledge that it's there. Yeah, don't burn your hair. Whoa. Get that over there, way far away from your hair. Okay. So, with that in mind, that's what happens with the script. And, once we get tired of script, we move in, some people move further and further into fantasy, that if only this will happen, if only I get the perfect job or the perfect man or move to the perfect town. There's a reading I have. It's in my bedroom. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Would you go get me the Farini book?
Yes.
It's right on the nightstand. Because it's a very...
Something I can do.
Thank you so much. It's very profound and apropos for what we're studying here today. And I just also wanted to quote, which I love, in the big book. It doesn't say more will be figured out. So, you know, it appears when we're in a workshop that we're figuring out the script, and we're figuring out solutions, and we're figuring out behaviors and how to not do it anymore, and now how to, for God's sakes, don't cause us any more pain or suffering, you know. But the truth is, the big book has the best line of all. It doesn't say more will be figured out. It says more will be revealed. So if we're very, very gently looking at this stuff, bringing it up, not using condemnation of myself or them or, you know, my perpetrators, my needles, but we just simply bring it up and go, oh, I got caught in that one. And I've been saying for a long time that this planet that we live on is really, the blessing to it is it's a planet of mirrors. It's the good news and the bad news. The good news is we get to see right there a reflection of where we're really at. You know, if we were just floating around in our spiritual bodies, we would just be perfect all the time, you know. But for some reason, we all signed some contract to come here in this planet to have that mirror right in front of us so that we could clean stuff up that we didn't know existed. And again, it's impersonal. When we do this cleanup work, we're not just doing it for our own individual self. We're doing it for the whole planet and for the consciousness of the collective. You know, I attended a UFO conference in Joshua Tree a few months ago. It was very, very fascinating. I learned a lot. But the speaker said, you know, the truth about this is really a penal colony, and we all got sent here to clean stuff up, you know. And I had to laugh because that's sort of like how you feel sometimes, especially when you look at other countries and the wars and everything that's going on. It's like, how did I get dropped down to a planet that still believes if I shoot the other guy, I'm going to feel better? You know, where is that, you know? So, but there's that incredible amount of us that know that that isn't the answer. But here we are. So our only solution is to lift out, stay in consciousness. But this was as a particularly wonderful reading. Everything you are afraid of is personified somehow, yet it belongs to you. The people who push your buttons are personifications of your own shadow. Often you return the favor, pushing their buttons too. Then your relationship becomes the relationship of one shadow pushing the buttons of another shadow. Only when you wake up and understand that the interaction is about your own shadow, not theirs. It's about what you hate, what you cannot accept, or what you fear about yourself. Then you are able to unhook emotionally, because only then will you stop projecting your fears onto others. That is one hell of a mouthful, isn't it? And that is a lifetime of work. That's what we're here to do. Whenever we're upset about something somebody else did, you know, we're projecting. They're doing us this big favor of showing us what we fear, what we're afraid of, and what we're unable to accept. You know, I came into the rooms and there's... the big book says that if we straighten out spiritually, all these other things would straighten out. Well, that wasn't my experience. You know, I came in, cleaned up the physical stuff, then got God. I mean, off the deep end, found Joel, meditation, 8 days of silence, and I loved it. You know, I loved it. But there was one area that I hadn't really done, and that was I accepted God. I couldn't not, because it became so known to me within. And I accepted the disease and my physical stuff, and what I couldn't accept was myself. I really wasn't approving of Dulcie. In all this time that I was looking out there thinking people didn't approve of me, didn't value me, didn't think I would amount to anything, that was my own projection out there, I didn't approve of me. I couldn't get spiritual enough, cleaned up enough, thin enough, blonde enough, rich enough, whatever it was, And that was the hardest part, was loving and accepting of self. Had no problem with God, no problem with the program, but am I really on my side? So that projection is really something. So if you've got a needle out there, you can check that out and see, what is it I'm really afraid of that I haven't accepted? And we used to say, if we see it in another person, we got it. Well, that didn't sit right, because I would notice things in other people that they did that I wouldn't dream of doing. No, I wouldn't dream of doing them because of my condemnation of what that was. But the truth was, I didn't accept that I was eligible to. And there's that wonderful word, yet. You're eligible to. If I see it, I would never do that. Just stick around the planet a little while longer, might walk right into that. Whoops, here I go. So all of the judgment has to go. I want to talk about the difference. That my echo?
No, that's doing it. Somebody out there.
Somebody out there needs to *6 to mute.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about the difference of, and I had to learn, the difference in judgment and discernment. And, if I'm looking out there and going, they shouldn't, or even myself, judging myself, I'm saying that it should be something other than it is, or that I'm making it right or wrong, and I'm immediately in duality of this is good, this is bad. But if I'm simply discerning, I don't have a judgment that they should be doing it any different, or that it's bad, or it's evil, or it's, but I simply look out and I go for good, orderly direction when I come to God. It's so simple in discernment. This either works or this doesn't work. And when I talk about working, I mean brings me the peace, the harmony, the flow, the magic. I'm under grace or I'm not. It works or it doesn't. And there's no judgment in that. But there is, what we have to have is spiritual discernment. Well, no, if I hang around with that person and do that, that's not going to work for me. To get me where I want to go, toward the light. But I don't make that person wrong for being there. Or I don't make that thing wrong. It's simply where they're at, and either it's going to work for them or it's not. So, yes, Lynn.
I always thought that working through a situation, when somebody else is knowingly or not knowingly, not knowingly doing and bringing up your script, staying and working on it was a gift that you can give yourself versus going and
Running, you mean?
Running.
Yeah.
Well, running, yes, when you need to walk away, but going somewhere else, because then you just find it elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So when you were talking about spiritual discernment, You know, does it work? Does it not? Should I stay? Should I go? Can you re-explain
Well, no,
that?
I meant when things are obvious aren't going to work for you. No, we need to work on our own judgment, you see, but then there's a judgment that it's bad. Where if it's discerning, you just simply walk away from it. You don't running away from it because there's fear or in it. There's just like, oh, no thanks, have a nice life, enjoy that, you know.
Oh, okay.
But you're not saying, oh, that's bad, I'm not going to, you know, God won't like me if I do that. Or, you know, there's none of that good and bad duality involved, none of that black and white thinking. It's just simply, this feels like the presence of God, this doesn't. And that's the discernment. Okay.
Hey, somebody.
Welcome. Okay, I've run across, because I've always had to go to a lot of programs. And when I talk about the 12 steps, I mean Al-Anon, I mean AA, I mean SLAA, I mean CODA, adult children, whatever you're breaking out in. Yes, the steps are the same, but interestingly enough, the tools are different. And we talk in Script and Kid about we coming to a position when we get our scripts clear of what we call managing them for a while until they dissolve. We manage them in that we get to that hole, we see it, we learn to walk around or build a bridge over it. We don't just jump in the hole like we used to because we know that script is there that's going to, come up. So we have manageability. And that's what these different programs give us, is tools of how to manage that particular script. For an example, in SLAA, I learned a trick of drawing 3 circles. And in the middle circle, you write down all the people that you say, well, I'll just say men, the men that you know you're not going to get the recognition from, that they are definitely going to read your script. So you learn not to date them. So they go in the red circle. Or you know that if you go to that bar to hear the music, you know you're going to be tempted to either drink or go off with somebody. So that goes in the red, that goes in your I call the red light district. The things that don't work. I don't go and bake chocolate cakes for my family anymore because I might lick my fingers and they may never get the cake, So that goes in that little red circle. The behaviors that aren't going to work for a Dulcie. So this is called managing these scripts, because the minute I do those things, I am going to be right off into self-hatred, self-loathing, and I have a heck of a time digging myself out. So I get that red circle. The behaviors that don't work for me do not, and I know they don't, the red circle. Then I got, the next one is the yellow area around there. Well, I wonder if I can go and do such and so. Maybe I can go to that banquet and not get triggered. Maybe I can go on a dating site and go out and just have coffee and not get hooked. Those kinds of things. But they go in what is called the warning, just like your red lights and yellow lights and green lights. The yellow light is, we're getting ready to stop here, but we're not sure if it's going to turn red or green, so we put it in there, and this is a tool I learned there. And it can work for several of the different programs. The things that you're not sure should be absolutely no, never, or like alcohol would be in that red circle. For me, sugar would be in that red circle. There's certain activities that I know I would do that would read my script and make me feel terrible about myself. And then you have the green, and then the outer circle is your biggest circle. And in there goes all those things I was talking about that you bring up to do instead. I call this one and go to the movie with so-and-so. I like to be with this person. Maybe this person likes to hike. I'll go hiking with her. take myself, buy some bubble bath. Whatever they are, they go in that big green circle because they're wide open. So whenever I'm starting to be attracted to anything in the red circle, I move out to the green and grab those things, just like the baby in the crib. Instead of going in and saying, no, you can't do that, you can't have that. I move out to those things, and this is called, for me, the way I manage me getting a script read, is I move into the positive things that I know work, and I know uplift me, and I know when I wake up tomorrow morning, I am going to be so happy I did those and not any of those other. And if I'm real vulnerable, I stay away from the yellow things, the things in caution. I don't go there. I wait until I feel safer. So that's like one tool. And each of these programs all have tools. And I was so into fixing her when I got into recovery. You know, I came in the 70s, I got through the 80s, I was at the first ACA workshop in town, I was at the first CODA, I started the first SLAA meeting in Los Angeles back in 1983 when I married him across the room on Valentine's Day. Talk about a fantasy script. And him was divorced the following Valentine's Day. So that's when I recognized I had an issue around that. Now, all of this is the kid trying to get the fantasy script read, every bit of it. But if you don't recognize that's what you're doing, you know, you go off and do these things. So anyway, in that program, I learned that there were, for me, men that were brandy chocolate cake men. That I'm never going to get satisfied on them. They're never going to give me what I need. No matter how much of I eat of it or drink of it, it's not going to be enough. And then there's what you call the abstinent, or the things that are good for me, the men that aren't going to read my script and that type of thing. I've still got the ad out, but anyway, that one. Anyway, I have here, these are tools that is really going to put us in touch with the kid. These are things that when I read them, I went, this is kid through and through. So I'm going to have you guys read them. And first of all, it's going to be, this is from the CODA program, but if you use the word kid, when you listen to this, and take this into your kid as we're reading them, they're the denial patterns that the kid goes into rather than facing the script. There's the low self-esteem patterns. There's the compliance, how she complies, and the control patterns, and the avoidance. So why don't I pass this around, and each one of you read just the behaviors. And, you know, Edie, you start with the denial and then pass them on. And, of course, these are the things you do instead, but they go on like that. So read just the denial and then pass it on. And now, but read it kind of slow so that people can take this in and see if any of these apply to you when you're trying to figure out your kid and your script. Are any of these helpful to, yeah, I do that, or, you know. Okay, these are denial.
All right, denial patterns. Have difficulty identifying what they are feeling. Minimize, alter, or deny how they truly feel. Perceive themselves as completely unselfish and dedicated to the well-being of others. Lack of empathy for the feelings and needs of others. Label others with their negative traits. Think they can take care of themselves without any help from others. Mask pain in various ways such as anger, humor, or isolation. Express negativity or aggression in indirect and passive ways. And do not recognize the unavailability of those people to whom they are attracted.
Now that's the biggest one I've seen for most women and men in the coda rooms, in the script rooms, is the absolute inability to recognize the unavailability of another person. They're just going to bark up that tree and knock on that wood by God till that person reads their fantasy script to them, which just doesn't happen. You know, and it comes from if you had a mommy and daddy that just couldn't give you that trait, you're going to go out and you're going to try to fulfill that, finding by somebody who's just not available. But by God, if I just work on them enough, I know I'm going to get them to come around my way, you know. It's just amazing. It can happen in children. It can happen in parents. It can happen in your boss. It can happen in work. It can happen, you know, with lovers or relationships. Okay, and then these are the patterns of low self-esteem.
Low self-esteem patterns.
I'm talking to the mic, Lynn, so they can hear.
Have difficulty making decisions. Judge what they think, say, or do harshly as never good enough. Are embarrassed to receive recognition, praise, or gifts. Value others' approval of their thinking, feelings, and behavior over their own. Do not perceive themselves as lovable or worthwhile persons. Seek recognition and praise to overcome feeling less than. Having difficulty admitting a mistake. Need to appear to be right in the eyes of others and may even lie to look good.
And there's a few more on the back. No, yeah. Now these are low self-esteem patterns.
Are unable to identify or ask for what they need and want. Perceive themselves as superior to others. Look to others to provide their sense of safety. Have difficulty getting started, meeting deadlines, and completing projects. And have trouble setting healthy priorities and boundaries.
Okay. Some of these might ring a bell and some may not. And then the other behavior of the kid is to comply rather than don't make waves, just the compliance patterns. And Debbie, will you read them into the mic so they can be heard?
Okay.
This is how we comply. Rather than stand up and tell them who we are, because they might not love us, they might abandon us, we do these things.
Okay, compliance patterns. Are afraid to express their beliefs, opinions, and feelings when they differ from those of others. Except
You missed one. Up at the line it says, are extremely loyal.
Okay. Oh, and I'm only reading codependence often, right? I don't read the
Correct.
in recovery. Okay. All right. Are extremely loyal, remaining in harmful situations too long, compromise their own values and integrity to avoid rejection or anger, put aside their own interests in order to do what others want, are hypervigilant regarding the feelings of others and take on those feelings, are afraid to express their beliefs, opinions, and feelings where they differ from those of others, accept sexual attention when they want love, make decisions without regard to the consequences, give up their truth to gain the approval of others or to avoid change.
Okay, and then if we're not complying, we're trying to control, and these are the control patterns. And these are all applying to the kid.
Believe people are incapable of taking care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Attempt
And
to-
speak so that they can hear you, Francesca.
On the control patterns. Believe people are incapable of taking care of themselves. Attempt to convince others what to think, do, or feel. Freely offer advice and direction without being asked. Become resentful when others decline their help or reject their advice. Lavish gifts and favors on those they want to influence. Use sexual attention to gain approval and acceptance. How to feel needed in order to have a relationship with others. Demand that their needs be met by others. Use charm and charisma to convince others of their capacity to be caring and compassionate. Use blame and shame to exploit others emotionally. Refuse to cooperate, compromise, or negotiate. Adopt an attitude of indifference, helplessness, authority, or rage to manipulate outcomes. Use recovery jargon in an attempt to control the behavior of others. Pretend to agree with others to get what they want.
Okay. You recognizing any of these either in yourself or those people around you. All right, and then we have one more section, and it's on avoidance patterns. What we do to avoid. You want to read them, Anne?
Okay. There's a
Act
line.
in ways.
Okay. Act in ways that invite others to reject, shame, or express anger toward them. Judge harshly what others think, say, or do. Avoid emotional, physical, or sexual intimacy as a way to maintain distance. Allow addictions to people, places, and things to distract them from achieving intimacy in relationships. Use indirect or evasive communication to avoid conflict or confrontation. Diminish their capacity to have healthy relationships by declining to use the tools of recovery. Suppress their feelings or needs to avoid feeling vulnerable. Pull people toward them, but when others get close, push them away. Refuse to give up their self-will to avoid surrendering to a power greater than themselves. Believe displays of emotion are a sign of weakness. Withhold expressions of appreciation.
Okay, thank you. So, who knew all of this could be going on in one little creature? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, many of us use the avoidance. Go ahead.
Dulcie, what is this? What is the source of that again?
That's from the Codependence Anonymous big book. They're patterns of recovery patterns. Yeah, you can find them in the Code book or online. You can even go online to Codependencies Anonymous, and they will have all of these patterns on there. But I found them extremely helpful to the kid work. Because the kid can't always identify. It has a feeling, but it can't always identify what in the world am I feeling and what am I needing. What do I need? You don't always know. You figure somebody else should know for you. Maybe you'll know what I need. Not. Okay. Thank you so much for reading. I want to go over a couple of the major points from the Joel tape last night. And, we talk about being of service. The first thing on the tape was God as individual consciousness. That's what we're talking about. But we get all this clutter going on with these aspects of ourselves that have gotten all that conditioning and all that backlog of abuse. A lot of times just plain ignoring someone is a form of abuse. Not necessarily overt, hurting or hitting, but just ignoring someone is a form of abuse. We got off the tape of I am that I am. And the main thing that I loved in that tape last night was the word fulfillment. It was talking about our purpose for being here. And whether your purpose is to be a nurse and serve that way, or play the fiddle and make people happy, or tell jokes, or walk dogs, or house sit, be a teacher. You're not doing it because the dogs need walked, or because, you're doing it because it's a part of you that fulfills you. It fulfills me to meditate. It fulfills me to abstain. It fulfills me to do the things I do to take care of myself. And that I get to bring me, which is amazing. And Joel said this, I bring to myself God's love because it fulfills me. And the reward of the deed isn't doing the deed. It's having the fulfillment of doing it. So if you're doing things for other people, I know that Christian religion talks about doing it. You do it for Jesus, and it's looking like these other people, but you're doing it for, in our case, the Christ consciousness. But you're doing it because we talk about it making you feel good. It fulfills your soul to be giving and serving in that way. And it's the reward in itself for having done it. Talks on that tape about there is no power external to me. I give every one of those needles the power. They may fluster around and want to puff up and make us think they have the power, but the truth is, I have to give them that power, or remove it and put it back where it belongs. And God is the only life that's being lived here. God appearing as Debbie, as Christy, regardless of state or stage of where we are in our growth, that is God living its life as. And talked about the one fear of everyone is death. And that's when your kid is in terror, your kid is in fear of its script. Underneath that script meant death in another lifetime, and that's why the kid's in terror. So when we go to really knowing, when we get to that spiritual adult like we did this morning, where the spiritual adult's in charge, we're so clear that God is eternal. And even if we lay down this particular carcass, I love that word, carcass, because it puts it in perspective. We lay down this particular, quote, personality. When we back up away from both of those in that silence, there is just isness, just life, just freedom, such peace and such harmony to step out of that physicality and just rest. And that's what we'll do when we die, is just step out of that. We don't have to be encumbered with it anymore. Okay, the only God that's realized is that one that you realize. God is always, always living itself, always, always pouring, giving, serving us, lifting us, but we turn away. It's up to us to turn back and recognize and realize, and it just takes a split second. I used to do this. I used to click my fingers. Just, Dulcie, come home, be still. I had all kind of little tricks. I drew things on my hands, still do, like I'll put an eye, just a large little eye, or I'll put is or something so that every time it catches my hand. And it worked in the film business because I'd be working on people and I always had my hand up like this on their, face like this, and this word would be right here, and that would click me, and right there, that person, regardless of what they were doing, saying, or believing, was the presence of God. And that, It's that training we do for ourselves. Most important two principles that Joel gives us over all of this stuff we're talking about, whether it be Coda or 12 steps or KID or script. Above all, the two things that Joel gave us that you don't find in any other belief system, well, maybe now some of the New Age, but there's two principles that he was the first to come out with, to my knowledge. Maybe not in the early Zen work, I don't know, but the two main principles that stands out in the infinite way is impersonalization and nothingization. And with those two principles, we can come in with script and KID, and even when we're in the middle of a script event to where we've got that glitch going, and we're starting to react, we're getting anxious, we're getting upset, when we pull back, and if we can pull up in our mind's eye, oh, wait a minute, this is impersonal. This is universal hypnotism, either being beamed at me or I am projecting it out from my own conditioning. And I pull back. That way it eliminates blame, guilt, shame. It's impersonal. I just got caught up in the advertising again. And then we move immediately to nothingizing it. Where is that found in our step work? 6 and 7 of the 12 steps. We get right up to naming it, claiming it, dumping it with a sponsor or one other person. What do we move into? Humbly become willing to have God/Spirit remove. We ask that it be removed. We ask that it be impersonalized. We ask that it go back to the nothingness that it is. When we're in the script steps, we get right to that point where our needle, or whatever, we've either read our own script or someone's read it to us. We get right up to that, we do the recognition, we take the 100% responsibility, and then we impersonalize it. And of course we did. We were in this human conditioning. Then where do we go with that? Right to nothingizing it. We drop all concern. That means it was going back to the nothingness that it really is. So either way, we get to impersonalizing it, nothingizing it, and dropping all concern. And then we move into those grow-up steps. And what are they? We grow up. What are the grow-up steps? Unconditional love, forgiveness, understanding, compassion, giving, being of service, seeing what I can do to offer the cool cup of water. And there we are, in the presence of the adult. Someone online needs to press *6 to mute. Thank you so much. So those were the things that were coming off the tape last night, the impersonalization, the nothingization. And he kind of wound it up with, I am the truth. I am the way. I am the light. The I am of our being, that spiritual adult, that soul faculty. That's the only place I know where to move to. Because if I move to KID or move to little self or little human being, I'm going to get back up in my head and I'm going to start figuring it all out. Where what I do is I bring it all together in a nutshell and I drop right in. God is, I am, nothingize it, impersonalize it, and sit and allow the love for myself for having fallen back into the hypnosis, my love for the person who didn't know any better than to read my script, and my compassion for those who are still asleep. There's only two states, either asleep or awake, one or the other. And how can anybody be in blame or guilt when they're asleep? Simply hypnotized. And that simplifies and brings all of that together to the peace. Okay. Did anybody find anything either on the phone line or here during lunch that they wanted to talk about or struggling with or know about themselves? If you'd like to share, press star 6.
Hi, this is Kate.
Hi, Kate.
Hi. That 100% responsibility piece, I'm sure I'm not the only person who finds it irksome, and I, in following the trail of the discomfort, I realized that I really get a lot of sport out of shaming and blaming and using all of the resistance behaviors, and I'm curious as to how to stop wanting to be in humanhood and in script.
It gets so bloody painful you can't stand it. That's my experience.
Oh, that's right.
Anybody else? I get sick of suffering. You know, I will go to any length to feel good. And that's why I will grab those steps up, because I want to feel good. I can't stand the pain. Anybody else want to comment on that? I've never heard it used, that word, as a sport, but you're absolutely right. For a long time, I think we get a lot of fun out of it. There's also a superiority involved of if I pull something over on somebody else, then I don't feel so less than after all. So until that sport becomes so painful to see someone else suffering from my behavior or see me suffering from my behavior, it's kind of like pinning a bug to a board and watching it die. I mean, some people get a lot of sport out of that. But I think what happens is it just ceases to be amusing and turns into compassion of, there's no way I can do that to another being, including my kid, anymore. I just can't hurt my kid that way. Because we live in a boomerang world. I mean, that we throw that out there, it is going to suck back so bloody fast. Sometimes early on in the work, it doesn't come back so fast, so we don't recognize that we had set that up maybe 2 days ago or a week ago. But for me, my boomerang's there within minutes of when something comes out of my mouth. My boomerang has me whacked. So the path does get narrower. But, there were years that it took a while for my behavior to turn around and, bring me up by the scruff of my neck. Anybody else about that?
I got something.
Francesca.
Where you said the ignoring somebody is a form of abuse. And I have a huge needle at work. A woman that I work with that is interfering with my ability to do what I've come there to do. She hoards information and undermines me, and I'm not getting support from our boss. So what I've started doing is I ignore her, and it is a sport in a way. because when I'm ignoring her, she's a little bit afraid of me, and she stops doing the behavior. And I stopped ignoring her, not because it wasn't working for me or that I felt bad for her, but because I know it's a form of resistance behavior, and I know it doesn't work, and just trying to distance myself from the situation and letting it be what it is. But hearing that it's abusive is enough for me not to want to do it anymore. Not compassion whatsoever, but that I feel bad that it's abusive.
You know, if we can remember that every person out there has that kid that has a script, and hers may be ignored and treated with indifference. I don't know what her script is, but if we can learn, it's hard because first we have to learn to take care of our own kid, but then the whole idea of the compassion is to remove the thorn from my brother's side. And if I see that something I'm saying or doing is causing that person pain, regardless of what they're doing to me, now I have to get me out of their way, that's for sure. But I start delivering what it is I think they are screaming for. And it's usually recognition of their spiritual divine self. Regardless of what they dressed up and what character they are, inside, that being is God screaming, the Christ screaming for recognition. My experience also is they turn the volume up. The more I refuse to recognize their Christhood, they get meaner, more in my face, cause me more problems, and it's just like the volume gets turned up further and further and further till I go, oh my God, all they want is me to recognize their spiritual self. I don't have to like the character they're being, but I have to, and I call it a call to prayer. When somebody I'm struggling with, it's a call to prayer. See me. Now, we're not the kid, not their little self, but see me, see who I am. Somebody please tell me who I am. I've forgotten. And I do that in the silence. But I have overtly, purposely done nice things for these type of people. The neighbor was driving me crazy. And when, I left a box of food on her porch when she came out of the hospital, I started, and I wasn't do-gooding. I was fulfilling that thing of what would deliver love in this circumstance, what would look like love. A special, hi, I hear it's your birthday. Just simple little things, but underneath those things that makes their kid kind of neutralized, what I'm really doing is the real work of recognition of their Christhood. That's all I'm here to do. That's all I'm here to do, whether I'm in the grocery line or, and it's amazing how they feel it and start changing the behavior. It's just amazing. Anybody else on? Now this is spiritual adult gear. It's hard to do if your own script is being read, So that's where we distance and we get the spiritual adult, and then we go, okay, how can I recognize the Christ in this person, or spirit self in this person?
When you're talking about it, I'm thinking, because in the beginning that's what I would do is try to help her feel less insecure. But it was resistance behavior, So she was still in the script, to try and make her feel safe or whatever, so she would stop doing what she was doing to me.
Correct.
So I get it. It's like I was still in the middle of I still am in the middle of my script. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to pull away from it.
Well, I'll do a short version of my lesson on that. I call it my ed lesson. Most of you heard it. I had a neighbor who was acting out periodically. This was quite a few years ago. And about once a month he'd get his period and get drunk and rev the motorcycle at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and terrorize them. It was the senior mobile home park and he'd terrorize everyone, And I had a 3:30 a.m. call on the set, and here I am trying to go to sleep, and this guy's decided this is when he's going to get drunk. And I'm like, oh no. And my bedroom was out near where he was, so I'm taking my pillow and blanket and going to the farthest end of my home, sleep on the couch to get away from the noise. And I'm saying the prayer that we do in the program, okay, God bless him. And what I'm really saying is, I want to go to sleep, shut the son of a bitch up, And I was picked up by the scruff of my neck, and I was told, you are praying incorrectly. The prayer is, God, Ed is in trouble and needs your help. You see, I wasn't even thinking about him being in trouble. It was how he was affecting my life. So I learned that, and the same with those neighbors I have today, they're in major, big trouble. They are, alcoholism and everything else. And so my prayer isn't so they don't disturb me. My prayer is, God, they're in trouble, they need your help. And do you know that guy cleaned up? I never got him to a program. I didn't have to go over and give him a big book, which was in my head, let's get this guy cleaned up. Nothing. Pretty soon he starts going to church Sunday mornings, him and his family. I had one more episode after that experience, and then never again. And then we moved, and here's the heart-wrenching part. We moved, my husband and I were in Sedona, and he had an accident and was held up in Sedona for surgery and stuff. And when we brought him home, that man was in our yard watering our plants. And when we pulled in, he said, I heard about what happened, so I've been taking care of your plants. I want you to know I've been praying for you. That's enough lesson for me to know what to do when somebody's acting out in my face, They're in trouble. Oh yeah, it's, inconvenient for me. It makes me unhappy, but they're in trouble. They need you, God. And I don't know what happened, but it happened. That's just was an experience. So they're always in trouble when they're in your face. And you pray for these people, and somehow, it works. Or it shifts my attitude too.